First off, any exercise is better than no exercise for hair loss. Let's just get that out of the way since I think we can all agree on that. But are there specific exercises that can actually slow down hair loss? The answer is yes, but to understand what these are, we first need to take a step back and consider what causes androgenetic alopecia or pattern hair loss in the first place. To put it briefly, pattern hair loss is primarily driven by a hormone called dihydrotestosterone, or DHT. DHT binds to the androgen receptors in your hair follicles, signaling them to miniaturize, which is a process where your follicle literally shrinks, receiving less blood flow and nutrients, and producing thinner and thinner hairs until it stops producing hair altogether. So when we talk about mitigating hair loss, it's usually done in one of two ways. One, reducing the amount of free DHT available in your bloodstream so there's less of it available to bind to androgen receptors in your follicles. And two, reducing the sensitivity of your androgen receptors to DHT. Both of these can be influenced to a certain degree, but by far the easier one to manage is the first, reducing the amount of free DHT in your system. Okay, so now that we've established the cause of androgenetic hair loss and how we might be able to have some degree of influence over it, where does exercise come into play? Well, if you watch some of my other videos, you'd know that exercise is a great way to improve insulin sensitivity. When you're more insulin sensitive, it means your cells are better at absorbing and using the sugar or glucose in your bloodstream, and that means two things. One, you're not going to have as much sugar floating around in your blood, and two, your body isn't going to have to produce as much insulin to address the excess sugar in your blood. The second point here is crucial, because insulin isn't just a simple hormone that interacts with glucose. It also impacts many other processes, including having a suppressive effect on the production of shbg, also known as sex hormone binding globulin. And sex hormone binding globulin is a very accurate name because that's exactly what it is. It's basically just a protein that binds to sex hormones in the blood, including hormones like testosterone, estrogen, and DHT, ultimately making these hormones unavailable to bind to androgen receptors elsewhere in your body. And like we talked about earlier, one of the easiest ways to influence your rate of hair loss is simply to reduce the amount of free DHT in your system. So tracing back this entire train of logic to determine the best exercise for hair loss, the short answer is whichever exercise does the most to promote insulin sensitivity. And the answer to that, which has been established over hundreds, if not thousands of studies, is aerobic exercise, otherwise known simply as cardio. And I know that's not the answer you wanted to hear because it's a lot easier and funner to lift some heavy weights a bit and go home. But if your goal is to slow down your hair loss progression as much as possible, you definitely want to be incorporating some degree of cardio in every workout. And that doesn't mean you have to do only cardio either. Anaerobic training has tons of benefits too, so let's not go too extreme one way or the other. Like most things in life, balance is key, and the same applies to hair loss. And that's all I have for you guys today. As always, I appreciate you tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next one.